All right, we revisit one of our top stories today. We get an update now on the latest in Zimbabwe from our reporter there, Ephert Musekiwa, who's in Harare. Ephert, thanks very much for joining us. Lots of things happening on social media, things that are being posted, and it's very difficult to determine what's true and what's not. Perhaps let's start with, what do we know has happened today?
Okay, good afternoon, Peter. Indeed, a lot of things have been happening. We are hearing reports from all over Zimbabwe about what's transpiring, the protests that are going on. But what I can confirm is that I've been to Ephert, where I witnessed, where I actually came across 3 people that were injured. And when we tried to inquire what had happened, we were told that they were shot. But apparently I did not witness any shooting by the police or anyone, but we actually did see the people. It was 2 men and a lady. The lady was being pushed in a wheelbarrow and they were trying to take her to the hospital. Again in Ephert, police they were running battles between skirmishes between the police and the protesters, police firing tear gas, and the protesters barricading the roads with stones, logs, and burning tires on the roads. They also were throwing stones at the riot police. So this is what I witnessed in Ephert. Then later on, I moved into the central business district. Most of the shops had been closed. A lot of people had been told to leave. Actually, people were walking back to their residential areas because there was no public transport. So this is what has transpired during the day, Peter.
All right, so the authorities are being quite swift and forceful in the way they're dealing with this, it would seem. Has it started to calm down, or is it just moving around from place to place?
Well, these altercations are across the capital and also in Bulawayo, where we are getting reports of that. That's where most of these activities are happening. I can tell you that in Harare, because of the distances between the places, I think the police actually failing. Even in Ephert, they were actually failing. There were like 4 water cannons that were moving on the streets of Ephert, but they still could not disperse the crowds. I'm told the same is happening in suburbs like Highfields. It's happening in Kwajana, and that's just an indication of that. It's across a wide section of the capital. It's also happening in the east in Mabuku. So really, it's all over the suburbs around the capital city, Harare. And for the only thing that we've picked from authorities was a tweet which was sent by the Zimbabwe Republic Police notifying other members of the public that in some areas the protests have actually turned violent and that police will move in to protect property and people.
So we know that the ZCTU had called for a 3-day strike or stay away, backed by the MDC, but this looks like people taking action on their own. This doesn't look as if it's being led by anybody in particular.
Personally, I've actually been trying to get hold of the leaders of the trade union, the ZCTU, to get an update or to get a comment from them as to what's happening across the country and what was the turnout. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get any headway. I think most of their phones are just going unanswered. So really, at the present moment, I cannot give you officially what the position of the trade unions who called for this stay away is. What I can only confirm is what I've observed, the places that I've been to. So really, until we get some form of a communication from the trade unions as to if this stay away or these protests are going to go on for the next 3 days or it was just a protest for today. But surprisingly, in Ephert where I was, the people said, when we did ask people around why they were protesting, they said, no, we are not protesting. We had just stayed away from work. And when the police came, they are the ones that started provoking us. And now we are retaliating to the presence of the police. So really, I do not, it's very tricky to say who actually caused the start of these skirmishes.
All right, so these fuel hikes, what has that done to the queues? Have you noticed a sizable difference, or is it much the same as it was last week?
Well, because of the disturbances today, Peter, a lot of service stations in the central business district have been abandoned because people actually people fled the city center. And as you can see in the suburbs where people live, there is burning down of the barricading roads and stuff. So I think people have moved their cars away from fuel stations. They have moved their cars to secure places. So really, but as of yesterday, the queues were still visible. Yesterday, people were still buying fuel, but they were not buying as much as they would have wanted to buy. But by yesterday afternoon, there were still queues, and people. There were still long queues of fuel, and not all the service stations actually had the fuel in stock.
All right. Social media is another platform that people are using now to express their feelings. What would you say is the overwhelming sentiment of most Zimbabweans on social media at this time?
Well, I think it's just them expressing their displeasure at how the government has reacted. Like I indicated, that police are actually firing tear gas, and we've had reports of tear gas being fired in many places, not just Ephert where I was. I actually witnessed the tear gas in Ephert, but everywhere else where police has been deployed, they've fired tear gas. They've fired tear gas in Mabuku. They've fired tear gas in Kwajana. So really they're saying that there's nothing that has changed from the way how the former administration of President Robert Mugabe, how they used to deal with protesters. They're still using the same. And now also witnessing the 3 people that were shot in Ephert, when the news started to go around social media that there were people that were shot, and people are just saying it's a continuation of August 1, where they don't like protesters, and the only way they deal with protesters is by shooting at people, and people really are just expressing their anger towards those actions by the authorities.
Has there been any message or reaction by the opposition parties, opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa perhaps in particular?
Well, today, not really. The only last confirmation that I had was from him yesterday when I spoke to him and filed that package that I did file yesterday. But today we haven't been able to get hold of either Chamisa or any of the organizers of this protest. And surprisingly as well, even government itself have not issued any public or any official reaction to the protests that are happening. We're actually waiting to hear if government is going to issue any statement by maybe end of day today or first thing tomorrow morning. Then we are also waiting for the opposition and the trade unions to tell us the way forward, considering we are almost approaching the end of the first day of the planned stairway.
Ephert, thanks very much indeed. That's our correspondent in Harare, Ephert Musekiwa, giving us an update on what looks like a lot of protests differing in size across the country, particularly in the major cities, Harare, a number of the townships there, as well as the central business district, which seems to be closed down pretty much, and the second city of Bulawayo. We'll have more for you in the next